Well, welcome to the 700 Club. A bridge between Jordan and Israel reopened today after 3 Israelis were killed there in a terror attack yesterday. Thousands of people in Jordan celebrated their murder and called for all Jews to leave the Middle East.
Meanwhile, a secret Hamas document is now in the news. It shows the terror group's strategy to divide Israelis and manipulate public opinion. Chris Mitchell brings us the story from Jerusalem.
A lone terrorist murdered 3 Israeli guards Sunday at the Allenby crossing between Jordan and the West Bank, Judea and Samaria. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned what he called the despicable shooting and pointed the blame at Iran.
We're surrounded by a murderous ideology led by Iran's axis of evil. The murderers do not differentiate between us.
In Jordan, thousands celebrated the terrorist attack, the terrorists, and threatened Israel.
We say to Netanyahu that your entity is vanishing and that there is no solution for you except to return to the countries from which you came. There is no place for you in Palestine.
Amid Israel's fight against terrorism, the push for a ceasefire and hostage deal has hit another roadblock. The Washington Post and Israel's Channel 12 reporting Hamas has introduced another obstacle to prevent a deal. A new demand where Israel would release 100 more terrorists serving life sentences than had been agreed to. Israeli sources putting the chances of a deal at close to zero. But protesters are still demanding a Gaza war ceasefire and return of the hostages in Israel.
We can't get any more bodies. We can't see body bags. We are fed up with the way this is being run.
The protests come as the German newspaper Bild published the contents of a secret Hamas document that implies the protesters may have played into Hamas's strategy. The paper claims the document shows Hamas leader Sinwar's plans to deceive, manipulate international opinion, and psychologically torture hostages' relatives. It said psychological pressure on the families of the prisoners must continue to be applied, both now and during the first phase, so that public pressure on the enemy government will increase. The document also exposed how Hamas manipulated the Israeli and international media. In case of a breakdown in talks, Hamas instructed its people to say Israel rejected the compromise proposals formulated by the U.S. regardless of the facts, so Hamas will not be seen as responsible for the failure to reach an agreement. The manipulation had one goal: rebuilding Hamas's military and maintaining control over the Gaza Strip. The IDF says it has had the document in its hands for months and is from a mid-level Hamas leader. During Sunday's cabinet meeting, Netanyahu addressed the revelation.
The vast majority of Israeli citizens do not fall into this trap of Hamas. They know that we're committed with all our might to achieving the goals of the war.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, I hope our own elected leaders won't fall into this same trap. It's always been just absolutely puzzling to me that all this pressure is being put on Israel to come to an agreement. They've agreed now 3 different times for a deal with Hamas that would release the hostages, and every single time it's Hamas that's rejected it. The pressure should be entirely upon Hamas. They're the ones who started this on October 7th. They're the ones who are continuing to keep hostages. And I remind every American, there are American hostages in those tunnels. The pressure needs to be on the terror group, on the ideology of hate that says no Jew can exist in the Middle East. That's the cry coming out of Jordan. That's the cry coming out of Gaza. That's the cry coming out of Hezbollah. That's the cry coming out of Iran. Let's stand with Israel. In other news, Israeli forces are going after terrorist threats in the West Bank. Ephraim Graham has that story from the CBN newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, it is Israel's largest operation in 2 decades against those threats. Our correspondent Chuck Holton has this look at the ongoing security challenges in this contested region.
I'm standing on Mount Gerizim, which is situated in Samaria, what much of the world calls the West Bank. This city below me was once the biblical city of Shechem. Now it's known as Nablus. This region right over here is the Balata refugee camp. It is very well known and notorious as the birthplace of the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade and other terrorist organizations, and that's why this region is a huge hotbed for terrorist activity, especially these days.
The reason why we haven't seen all-out war between forces in Judea and Samaria and Israel is because Israel has been going in with significant intelligence and hyper-focusing military activities on specific terror groups, small groups, as they arise.
As a main thing, we have to understand it's not our war, it's a common war. Because terror from here can raise all over the world.
For Israelis in Judea and Samaria, the threat of terrorism is a daily reality. Many feel they could be targeted at any moment.
There are a lot of the Arabs/Palestinians living in our region, and we've been living kind of side by side, and sometimes they mind their own business, and many times they try and kill us. Ever since October 7th, it's gotten worse.
This town I'm driving through is an Arab Muslim town in Samaria called Hawara, and it's been the site of a lot of unrest since October 7th. As a matter of fact, you can still see the remnants of burned tires in the street and things like that. And it's gotten to the point where it's so dangerous for Israelis to drive through here because their cars have a different color license plate than the cars from the Palestinian Authority, that they've started to take a longer route to go around and bypass this town when they have to come through this area.
United States of America must stand strong with the people in Israel in this operation by attack the terror and not waiting for the terror to attack us. We have to clean this terror. Everyone that wants to live and stay here in peaceful, welcome.
Israeli authorities are particularly concerned about UNRWA schools potentially fostering extremism here. There's growing evidence these UN-run institutions have educated and recruited young Palestinians to join in terrorist activities.
I never seen school books in different states that educate how you prepare and build a bomb. We must solve that. You cannot educate to kill us and think that we will let you live here beside us. It's too much risky.
As tensions continue to simmer in the West Bank, Israelis are taking extra precautions to protect their families.
There's a lot more security. There are more security cameras. We've been purchasing drones, thermal drones, and they've really been a lot of help. More guns, more guns in every community, and hoping and praying. I spend my time praying.
From Samaria, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Here at home, dozens of wildfires in California and Nevada have forced thousands of people to evacuate. As Dale Hurd reports, some of those fires have grown enormously in only a few days.
State officials said overnight there were 14 active wildfires burning across California. Blazes have grown by more than 4 times just since Saturday morning.
And so it was really just everywhere you turned around, there was a new spot fire. There were literally hundreds of spot fires coming off of this.
Fire north of the Bay Area has burned at least 30 buildings and forced 4,000 people to evacuate the city of Clear Lake. Authorities urged residents in several areas to flee.
This is the first time I've ever evacuated. So it's been all new experience for me.
In Southern California, firefighters briefly ran from flames. The area's largest wildfire, the Line Fire, has burned more than 20,000 acres in San Bernardino County and has grown 14 times bigger in just over 1 day. An emergency was also declared in Nevada as a fire south of Reno forced 14,000 people to evacuate. And a brutal days-long heat wave has gripped the West, with triple-digit heat expected in some areas through tomorrow. And the heat, along with thunderstorms, making things even tougher for firefighters. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
God is still at work on college campuses a year after the move of the Holy Spirit at Asbury University. The latest example can be seen on the Corpus Christi campus of Texas A&M University. A recent campus gathering organized by New Life Young Adults drew nearly 1,500 students. Two pastors posted pictures of the gathering on Facebook, saying there were powerful testimonies with many physically healed and delivered, along with 62 baptisms. The Christian Post reported the message was about the conviction, cleansing, and commissioning that follows a genuine encounter with God. So great to see revival. Gordon?
It is, and a genuine encounter with God should be our aim. It should be our aim in every church, in every university, in every place where people assemble. Let us have a genuine encounter with God. If we do, then our nation can turn, and we can turn back to Him. We're calling on people to pray for America and pray in that genuine encounter with God. God always wants to raise up a standard. When the enemy comes in like a flood, he wants to raise up a standard. Let's not just, say, okay, let's retreat to the hills and let's give up. And no, we've got to stand, and we have to stand for righteousness, and we need to stand for our nation. So we're asking you to join with us in prayer. This is a very important time in American history, but wouldn't it be wonderful if we prayed in a tremendous nationwide revival? We've seen it. We've seen a great awakening before the American Revolution. There was a second great awakening in the 1820s. There have been a series of moves of the Holy Spirit through our history. Let's have yet another one. Righteousness always exalts a nation. If you want to join with us, call us 1-800-700-7000. Say, I want to pray for America. You can also text PRAY to 71777, or you can go to prayforamerica.com. I have a lot of resources for you. One of my favorites is a PDF of the prayers of the president. So you have George Washington praying when he's still the commander-in-chief. He's not yet president because the war isn't won. And then we have a prayer from John Adams as he was president and facing opposition and the attacks from the British, Abraham Lincoln in the middle of the Civil War. When these things happened in our history, we always turned to God. We appealed to heaven. Let's do it again. 1-800-700-7000.